Hey, it's Sam, and here's Matt. Pull up a chair, let's have a chat. Sobering thoughts, we're peeling it back. Two minds on the mend, truth we can't pretend. Laughs and lessons will blend. Recovery's a ride, no map, no guide. But here we stand, side by side. Sobering thoughts, let's talk it through. Finding the light in what we do. A journey shared, it's me and you.
Hi, everybody, and welcome to the second episode of Sobering Thoughts Recovery with Sam and Matt. I'm Matt,
I'm Sam.
and today we're going to talk about change and the stages of change and what it's like to feel change coming from addiction into recovery. So, Sam, up next, I'm going to just ask you a few questions. So, what does change really mean to you in recovery?
So, change really means to me when I was using drugs, change was very frightening because I didn't know what that really looked like. When I thought about what did I need to do to make change, was quite difficult because I was very much alone. I really had no friends. I wasn't talking to family members. I was in a DV relationship, which made it harder, and I was quite isolated. So
Yeah.
change was quite difficult. That I wasn't really too sure what change really looked like then. What about for you? What did change look like for you?
I think change really started happening for me when I knew that the addiction was affecting my health. I think that came a lot into it where I knew my body didn't feel right. And, obviously the lack of sleep from the amphetamine use, staring at a ceiling, all night, pretending you're asleep next to your partner can really have a real mental effect
Mm.
a part of you as well. So I think that's when I decided, look, I needed to change. I needed to get out of here. So my second question now to you, Sam, is why does it change feel hard and uncomfortable sometimes?
I think for me, change was uncomfortable because I didn't know what I was doing and I was doing it alone. So change for me um, was pretty much packing my bags, leaving everything behind, and going off to rehab. I didn't have my daughter in my care at the time, so I knew I had to make change. What about for you, Matt? What did change look like for you? Why
Oh,
was change really hard and uncomfortable for you?
it was uncomfortable because it was hard. I think because I didn't want to change. I was happy. I think, which is kind of contradictory what I just said before, but when you're in addiction, when you're doing something like I knew I had to do something. I knew that my health was failing because of it, but I just didn't have that. How do I get out of this whole kind of feeling to this barrier of like how do I actually do it? And I had to make that point where I was like, no, tonight's the night. I have to do it. So I mean, uncomfortable, yeah. Being in no better of the word, like busted by a partner, and that helped a lot because it wasn't a secret anymore.
But did you
Really,
feel like that you needed to say something to her? Was there any thought pattern for you to make change, or did you make change when you got busted?
I that's a really good question. I started making change, I think, after I got busted because I knew it wasn't just that secret for me anymore. People knew about it. It ended up not being fun anymore. Even though I'm saying that addiction is not fun, addiction is addiction. But it wasn't the secret that I had anymore. People knew about it. So it was definitely one of those things.
And we talk about the stages of change, and for those that don't understand the stages of change are pre-contemplation.
So let's start with pre-contemplation. What do you think pre-contemplation looks like, Sam?
Well, I think pre-contemplation for me is when I didn't know I had to make change.
Yeah.
I was in addiction, I was using drugs, my behavior was very erratic. Although, in the back of my head, I knew I had to make change if I needed to, clean my life up. But it wasn't, that pre contemplation stage was when I was in active addiction. What about for you, Matt? Like,
What it, what does it mean for me? I think pre-contemplation is, look, I'm happy using drugs. You cannot change my perception of using drugs. I'm happy exactly where I am. That's pre-contemplation to me. That's how I explain it. Anyway, like, you can't help me. I'm happy right here where I am. On to the next one, which is contemplation, guys. And I'll start off. So, contemplation usually happens when there's an external factor that's impacted you as a whole. So, this could be a number of things. It can be your health, it started affecting your job, it can be your money, it can be the DCJ has gotten involved for your children. What do you think about that, Sam?
yeah, for me, contemplation is weighing up the pros and cons of using versus quitting. Still feeling that I want to use drugs, but stopping, I'm not too sure how to. And you're right too with DCJ. When DCJ got involved, I knew I had to stop.
Yeah.
But how do I stop using drugs?
Yeah.
And this is a difficult stage in recovery in change, is because we know how to use drugs, but we just don't know how to stop.
So, do you think we're still using in the contemplation stage?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
Definitely.
A lot of people would be using still in the contemplation stage. So, the next stage, Sam, what would you have for that one? I'll throw it over to you.
Preparations. The person has decided to change and is getting ready.
What does that look like, getting ready?
So that may be, I remember Googling, and I mentioned this in the first episode, Googling what is an addict and Googling the symptoms up. And I giggled because I didn't know if I was an addict or not. I knew that my life was becoming so unmanageable, but I didn't know how to get it back on track. And if I had it there in black and white, being in denial myself, that I could move forward and start to make change. And like I said in the first episode, that, I needed to make change. I had a conversation with my doctor about, going to a rehab. And I said, I can't do that. I've got a house. And he said to me, is your daughter living in that home? I said, no. Is it really a home? So I remember I needed to make change, and the only person that was going to make that change was for me to pick up the phone. And that's when I picked up the phone and called a rehab and booked in.
Yeah, I mean, we the preparation stage is such a pivotal and crucial stage for a lot of people that are in addiction, because it is about getting on, Google. It is about having a conversation with your doctor. It could be just be looking up the effects of what the drug or alcohol is doing to your body. It could be looking at pamphlets that you've picked up from certain organizations. It could be doing like many, many different things, just basically gathering knowledge
Mm.
on what's happening to me in my addiction and my substance of choice.
We have so many family members or people, we associate with telling us that we have a problem and that our behaviours change and that we need to make change. And I think, this is this is a hard, lonely road where you do need to get outside external supports to make that change happen.
Yeah, I mean, the support definitely in that preparation stage can come from home. Reaching out, actually saying, "Hey, look, I have a problem. I need help," is definitely a step forward. So the next stage after preparation is what we call action. And action is a really, really crucial stage because it's everything that you've kind of gained in preparation, you're putting in action. So if you've called up a rehab and done an assessment, you're probably going to the rehab. If you've called up a doctor and made doctor's appointments to talk about your addiction, you're actively going to these appointments. What do you think, Sam?
100%. And this also in the action phase could be about going to detox.
Oh, definitely.
I think detox is really important. This is a really important stage. And, in my in the professional industry, I quite often hear people say, "Oh, but I did detox." And
Did detox for 7 days and I'm right. I'm
yeah, I'm
fine. I'm
right.
fine now. Did the detox for 7 days. I'm cured.
Yeah, but detox, very important. I believe that you need to be in detox for safety reasons, that you're detoxing off the drug. And then you have the rehabilitation stage where you actually go and learn about yourself, how you're going to learn how to be you again.
Get those tools for that toolbox and learn about yourself, that there is a life that doesn't consist of addiction. And throwing it back over to you again, Sam. The one after action is
Maintenance.
maintenance. So the maintenance phase is basically you're going, you're running, you've done everything you can in that action phase. Maintenance can go on as long as it needs to go on for. It could go on for the rest of your life. It can go on for 20 years. It just needs to do it. Forrest Gump would be like, "I am running," because you're just doing it. You've learned all the tools. You've got the tools in the toolbox, and you haven't. You're living your life. What about you, Sam?
Maintenance for me, look, this is a lifelong trip, if you want to call it.
Yeah,
For me, this might be going to meetings, whatever it is that you need to do, whether it's, seeing your psychologist, your doctor, as long as you're not, picking up drugs and alcohol,
exactly.
that's your maintenance stage. And I think it's very important. And like I like that saying is the opposite of addiction is connection. Having connection is really important. And I think we spend a lot of our time in addiction disconnected to others, especially those who don't use drugs and alcohol. That connection is going to really be a lifesaver.
Definitely. So we're going to move on now to what we're going to call just the barriers of change, because there is going to be barriers that you're going to, eventually face when you feel like, "Hey, look, I should change," but there's going to be something there that you're going to feel like it's going to stop you. So a lot of the time there is a fear of losing your own identity and friends, because we build an identity around our addiction. Right? We keep friends that are also in addiction because that's how we keep that addiction going. That social environment. Do you agree, Sam?
100%. Barriers have changed. Like you really, it's like a 360 change. You need to really change your lifestyle and change who you hang around with. Um, Change a lot of things in your life to, get into recovery.
Mhm.
And the barriers that I faced were I had no friends outside of addiction. That was a barrier for me. This was like changing my lifestyle completely. What about for you, Matt? Like what barriers did you face when, you stopped using drugs?
I think mine, the friends part was easy because I completely moved away from Sydney, and eventually made new friends. Mine was more that loss of identity. because I'd been in addiction so long and so used to using amphetamines that I didn't know how to function without it. Right.
Mm.
So who is Matt without being able to be at this level of, excitability and extrovert and things like that? So it was definitely a loss of identity, which I needed to plant that seed again and let it grow. And it, this wasn't something over weeks. It was, months and months of who am I and who am I without that drug in my life.
And well, not just guilt and shame, there's grief and loss too that sort of happens as well. I remember that, I was grieving a substance that I was using for so many years. And like you said, I didn't know how to live my life clean and sober. And, I remember feeling like I lost my best friend, and I had to weigh up whether I wanted to lose the drug and find myself again, because I also had my daughter who I needed to be there for.
Of course.
And it's very hard to explain the transition that you do make when you're giving up something that was so something that you had every day in your life.
Well, it's
It's
prevalent in your life every day. It's something like brushing your teeth.
mm,
You used it like it was like, as I said, like a tool. Oh, my house is dirty. I'm going to have a whack. And I'm going to clean everything in the house, and everything's done by the afternoon.
yeah, and you make a good point there, is because we become so dependent on the drug and alcohol in our lives that we don't know how to live life without the substance.
Yeah.
And like you said, I remember cleaning my house when I was high, and I would always say, I need something to get me high in order to clean my house. And it was always that first thing that become your first priority was to find the drug so you could actually function. Functioning without the drug, I remember sleeping for probably 6 months
Mm.
at one time when I actually gave up using. And yeah, I really found living life substance free was quite difficult.
Mm.
And that's why I knew I had to go to rehab
Mm.
to learn how to live life again.
Mm. I mean, that's like bringing back to shame and guilt, how we started the conversation. I mean, using any kind of substance for any reason, when it is, especially an illicit substance like amphetamines or
Mm,
cannabis or, prescription medications, they're not prescribed to you. There can be a lot of shame that goes along with it, especially when you're looking for support. You can feel that internalized shame.
mm,
And
mm,
then, on the other side of that, the guilt of knowing that this is bad for me. I shouldn't be doing this to myself. I shouldn't be doing this to my family and my friends who want to support me. But the addiction is still there, and you just can't stop.
mm, mm,
No matter how many times someone says, "Hey, I'm here to support you," you're out the door within 15 minutes trying to score.
mm.
So it's one of those things where you have to have change on the mind. You have
And
to
you want to
want it.
have to want it too,
Yeah,
because
definitely.
if there's a part of you that doesn't want to change, then making change
Mm,
is going to be very
mm,
hard.
yeah. Look, another big barrier that comes up in trying to change or learning to change is the doubt whether recovery is even possible. And a lot of people go through this. Right? A lot of people go, "Well, I can't possibly. I've been an addict for 30 years. How could I possibly, get into recovery?" Right? It's the mindset that you have to develop that you can change. We are humans. We are adaptable. Right? We can adapt to any situation, and we can learn to change our thinking patterns and how we handle the way we see things. What do you think about in recovery? Is recovery possible if there's doubt?
I think recovery is possible if there is doubt, because I think having doubt is can drive you
Mm,
also
mm,
to find recovery,
mm,
if that makes sense.
mm.
it's just like when I was driving down here this morning, I had some doubt because I didn't know where I was going. I put Google Maps on
You
to
never know where you're going.
no. I think, whether it's doubt, it may be a little bit of anxiety. Do you know what I mean? It's something you're always going to have doubt about something. And maybe that's the human mind. That's how we function. Do you know what I mean? There is going to be doubt in life about things.
Always going to try and second guess it.
Mm.
Right. And for our listeners listening, we did not forget the last stage of change, which is lapse versus relapse. We were leaving it just for a little bit because it is quite a strange thing to put in, like lapse versus relapse on a stages of change model. Sam, why do you think they put that in there in the stages of change in the first place?
I do hear that, addiction or recovery is a relapsing disease. And that, this is another podcast about whether we're looking at addiction as a disease. But, people that do go into recovery do relapse. I know that I was in recovery for about 8 years and I relapsed. I didn't lapse. So for me, relapsing was that I picked up again and life became very unmanageable. I really found it difficult to get my life back on track again. And although I did finally manage to get my life back on track again, there's always that chance, and I can never say that I'm going to 100% stay in recovery because I'm a recovering addict.
Definitely. Yeah.
What about for you, Matt?
Well, I mean, the theory is that the reason why lapse and relapse is there is they say lapse is 1, 2, 3 times that you've used again, and then the relapse is the 4, 5, 6 continuing. Right? It's there because there's something that's missing from your recovery plan. Right? Something's come up, right, in your preparation that you've used. You may have used a relapse recovery plan in your preparation, and something's happened you weren't prepared for. It's come up, and I usually ask people like, "Do you think you go straight back into pre-contemplation if this happens, lapse and relapse?" And a lot of the time, people say, "Yeah, I think you would."
I think you do too.
Yeah, I mean, you can go straight back into that. No, I'm happy with my drug use again. But a lot of the time, it's looking at your relapse recovery plan and seeing, hey, look, I didn't have this at this time. I wasn't prepared for it, adding it, and then moving right back into maintenance.
And I remember my second relapse. I remember a dear friend said to me, Sam, you've done recovery before. You know what it's about. And I just looked at her and I said, do you know what? I don't think I've got it in me for another recovery because I know the hard work that I put into my first recovery, how much hard work that was. But I did it, and here I am today. So
Yeah. So our next kind of things we're going to cover about change is what can help people move through the stages of change. Right. So Sam, we can talk about support networks, and people think, well, support networks, they're friends, they're family, they're you can actually reach out to meetings, such as AA and NA. But it's those close friends that are going to be there to help and support you, that are going to be the ones that are going to help you through these changes at the time. Even just celebrating the small wins. Hey, look, I'm 1 day clean. Hey, look, I'm a week clean. Hey, look, I'm 2 weeks clean. These things should be celebrated.
100% they should be celebrated.
I just feel that when we set these little goals for ourselves in recovery, it's going to make such the biggest difference, and we'll be able to celebrate it in a way that we're not using drugs and alcohol. We're celebrating it with the mind and the heart. So we're going to move on to now basically us and stuff. So if you could reflect back on yourself, Sam, what times did you feel stuck in a stage?
Ooh, look, I think pre-contemplation, that I found, weighing up the pros and cons of stopping using and finding my way back to recovery. That was one of the hardest stages, is because you're actually thinking about, going into recovery, giving up your drugs and alcohol, and changing your life forever. And if you've been down that road before, this is a hard road to go down. And being alone too makes it difficult. What about, for you, Matt? Like, what can you think about a time using these stages of change? What?
Well, back when I well, first in recovery, I didn't know about stages. And now that I know about them, I think mine was more the preparation,
Mm.
because I did it so abruptly. My quitting, my stopping, and
So it sounds like there was no pre-contemplation for you. It was either, it sounded like that you were in that denial phase, and then all of a sudden you need to make change.
yeah, definitely. I was in pre-contemplation. Don't get me wrong. And then I went straight to contemplation, to preparation. Like, I went, no, this is it. I'm done. I can't be here anymore. If I'm here anymore, I'm gonna die.
Mm,
So I think the main stage that I got stuck in, as I said, was preparation, because this was, the early 2000s. The internet wasn't the internet that it is today. So I did everything off my own back, and just had to kind of struggle with it and just find information where I could,
mm,
and go to my local GP and ask questions and things like that, just to have more of an understanding. So I think preparation was definitely my biggest stuck point, if you
mm.
want to call it that. What's the importance of compassion, Sam, for yourself in the stages of change?
How do you mean compassion for
Well,
myself?
more like just self love, really.
I think that self love, I really didn't know what self love was.
Yeah,
I had hated myself for, what I was doing in life. I hated myself for what happened to my daughter at such a young age, that having compassion for myself, I didn't really think about that until, months and months being substance free. That's a really hard question to answer,
yeah,
having compassion for yourself.
yeah. I think it really is, because when you're fresh in recovery, you're kind of dull to emotion. Right?
Mm,
Especially amphetamines, where you've had that dopamine hit for so long,
mm,
you end up becoming this almost zombie, because there's no feeling there. So having compassion or trying to have self love can be quite difficult. Right?
mm,
There is practical tools that we can use in early recovery, like journaling about what stage that you feel that you're in, which is really, really good. Trying to just basically feel that in your body, like, hey, yeah, I'm still in a contemplation. You know, getting setting small, achievable goals. One a week, right, can be really, really good tool to be used for this as well. What do you think, Sam?
I remember when I was in rehab, I remember having light bulb moments. And what I mean by that is I forgot who the real Sam was. That when I stopped using substance, I didn't know who Sam was anymore.
Yeah,
But then I do remember, as the weeks and months went by, I remember I having these little light bulb moments where I thought, oh my God, this is the old Sam. I remember feeling feeling a certain way that I did, years and years ago before I picked up any drugs. So these little light bulb moments were really important to me, especially through rehab, is because I was getting to know the old me again. Does that make sense?
yeah, it totally does. Totally does. I think. the journey starts the day you put down the bottle, the day you put down the needle, the day you decide I've had enough, right? And it's going to come from an external factor, right? It's going to come from I've lost my job, I've lost all my money, DCJ's involved, the police is involved, I'm going to jail. These things are real things that are going to happen. So it's about embracing change.
Mm.
And I think, and it's about just letting change openly flow from you and being accepted to take it in as well. We're going to leave it there. We're going to wrap up. So we're just going to finish with change is a journey. It's never a straight line. And just find the encouragement and in yourself and try and be courageous to find your own change and start your own journey.
And
just
you can
remember,
do this.
you can do it, exactly. And you know what? You're not alone. There is plenty of support out there. Please reach out. Go on the internet. Look up. There's plenty of NA, AA groups you could go to. Thanks very much for listening. Please leave us a like on Spotify or on YouTube. And we'll catch you next time. Bye from Matt.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to Sobering Thoughts with Sam and Matt. Please leave a like or subscribe, it would help a lot. See you next time for more talk and laughter.